If you are new, this will probably save you months of pain. If you are experienced, probably you'll recognize yourself.
And even if you have never touched a truck, these mistakes aren't really about trucks. They are about judgment, pressure, and a quiet decision that catch you when you are not looking. This is something another driver said to me early on, and it stayed with me ever since.
If the place looks tight and it already feels awkward, reverse in. Because if you can't reverse in, how are you going to reverse out?
I learned it the hard way in that brewery yard I just mentioned. Nosed in because it looked quicker, spent the next half an hour shunting back and forwards because the only way out was a blindside reverse into a busy A road at rush hour. I learned that if I feel there's no room to turn around in the yard, the smartest move is to reverse in on arrival, even if it feels awkward, because reversing out later into traffic it's usually worse. After you've been caught a few times, you start to feel it. You arrive somewhere and something doesn't sit right. The space feels tight, the angles don't work. That's the moment to stop and think, not push on.
Even now on Class 1 it still applies. I've chosen to reverse in many times simply because I knew getting back out on the blind side would be a nightmare.
Another part of this mistake is not positioning yourself for the exit as soon as you arrive. You might drive into a yard, do the delivery, and while you are inside, someone else drives in beside you. Suddenly you are blocked in, and now you are waiting, not because the job takes long, but because you didn't prepare your exit when you had the chance. That's something I had to learn the hard way. Since then, I've never stopped thinking how I'm getting out before I even go in.
This one is made worse by social media. You open your phone and all you see are perfect reverses. No shunts, no second try, no hesitation. And when you are new, you start to believe that this is the standard.
It isn't. Every driver has good days and bad days. No one reverses perfectly every time. I've had days where everything lines up and days where I needed multiple shunts. And I'm fine with that.
I'd rather take 10 shunts calmly than rush a maneuver and create a dangerous situation.
Speed matters more than people realize. At low speed, you buy yourself time, and time is everything. 2 miles an hour versus 4 doesn't sound like much, but it halves your reaction window. At lower speed, you notice people walking behind the trailer, cars creeping too close, or a bad angle early enough to fix it calmly.
And here's the truth. Nobody is watching you. Nobody is counting your shuntings. What the people notice is recklessness. Don't rush to impress anyone. Don't confuse speed with competence. Take your time and stay in control.
Instructors say it, experienced drivers repeat it, and yet many new drivers hesitate, because somewhere along the way we pick up the idea that getting out means you are inexperienced. That belief is wrong. Experienced drivers don't get out and look as often because they build judgment over time, but they still do it when something doesn't feel right. I'll be honest, I've had my share of small hits, and every single time there was the same thought in my head beforehand. I should probably get out and look, and every time I ignored it, I paid for it.
I told myself it will be fine. I didn't want to look like a beginner, and it wasn't.
That embarrassment you imagine, it's only in your head. But if you hit something, the embarrassment becomes very real. That phone call to the transport department, the explanations to the insurance company, the replaying of the moment where you knew better. And trust me,
None of that is worth skipping a 30-second walk.
if there's doubt, listen to it. Get out, look properly. That's not weakness. That's professionalism. Before I even started my first job, one of the first things I did after getting my license was buy a proper TomTom truck sat-nav. I couldn't imagine driving a truck without something that understood my height, weight, and restrictions. And for the most part, that decision saved me more times than I can count. But even then, I made the mistake of ignoring it occasionally. A delivery looked close. The road felt familiar. I told myself Google Maps would be fine. The problem is restrictions don't show up when it's convenient. You might drive 10 miles thinking you are on a normal route, and only then you see the weight limit or a low bridge sign. And by that point, you don't have options. You can't just magically reroute a 44-tonner. Most of the time, the only choice is to turn around and drive the whole way back. Google Maps doesn't know your vehicle. It doesn't know what you're pulling. And when it gets wrong, you're the one dealing with the consequences. A proper track sat-nav doesn't make you a better driver, but it removes entire categories of risk quietly, before they ever appear. And when you're new, that matters more than confidence.
This one I made far too often at the beginning.
I'd look at the taco, see I still had time, and tell myself I'd push on a little longer. 30 minutes felt comfortable, 15 felt manageable, 10 felt tight, but I convinced myself I'd find somewhere a parking space. Then suddenly I was down to 5 minutes, scanning the road and hoping. That's when your mindset changes. You stop planning and start reacting, and hope is not a strategy. What always struck me was how different the road looked depending on pressure. When relaxed, parking spots were everywhere. When desperate, they vanished. I can't count how many times I stopped awkwardly on lay-bys or double yellows simply because I waited too long and boxed myself in. Eventually, I changed my rule. Unless I know exactly where I'm stopping and I know I'll get there within margin, I take my break as soon as I approach 4 hours at the first safe opportunity. No squeezing minutes, no stress. That one change removed an entire category of pressure from my day.
This is something I avoided early on, especially working through agencies. When you are new, you don't want to lose opportunities. You don't want to be difficult.
And sometimes you are not fully confident yet about weights, distribution, or what's acceptable. So, when something feels off, you stay quiet. I remember collecting a pallet where the sender stacked 2 pallets to save money. Wrapped neatly, looked fine, but the bottom boxes were already starting to crush under the weight. I noticed it, I felt it, and I ignored it. By the time I got back, the pallet had collapsed and needed rebuilding, and the transport manager's response was simple. Why did you took it? That's when it clicked. Once you leave the yard, the responsibility is yours, not the sender's. Question loads early, refuse them calmly if needed. That's not being difficult. That's protecting your license and yourself. This last one is different from the others, because it's not something that happened to me directly, but something I've seen happen around me, often quietly and over time. And it's probably the most important mistake of all. Don't marry the lorry. This job can be incredibly time demanding, depending on the type of work you do. Long hours turn into longer weeks, and before you realize it, the truck starts to take priority over everything else. I've seen drivers slowly drift into a life where work becomes the center of everything, and everything else is pushed to the side. Family, relationships, time at home. Not because they made a single bad decision, but because they kept choosing work one more time, thinking they'd balance it later. And later never really comes. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important than your time with the people you care about. Money can be earned again. Opportunities come and go, but time, once it's gone, doesn't come back. I remember very clearly when I told my wife that I wanted to become a truck driver. She already understood what the job could involve, because my father works in Europe doing long stretches away. And she agreed, but with one condition. Every evening I come home. We eat dinner together. That was the rule, and this is a rule I've respected ever since. No nights out. No slipping into routines that slowly pull me away from home. I don't do nights for that reason. And when I did some night shifts in the past, it was only for very short periods, 2 or 3 weeks at most, because I knew exactly where that road could lead if I let it. So, before you build a career, before you chase money, before you say yes one time too many, decide where your real priorities sit. Because being a good driver is important, but being present in your own life matters more. This job rewards calm judgment more than speed, and long-term thinking more than short-term gain. Drive safe, make good decisions, and remember, the quiet mistakes are the ones that catch you.